The Stone Zone with legendary Republican strategist and political icon and pundit Roger Stone. Stone has served as a senior campaign aide to 3 Republican presidents. He is a New York Times best-selling author and a longtime friend and advisor of President Donald Trump. As an outspoken libertarian, Stone has appeared on thousands of broadcasts, spoken at countless venues, and lectured before the prestigious Oxford Political Union and the Cambridge Union Society. Due to his 4+ decades in the political and cultural arena, Stone has become a pop culture icon. And now, here's your host, Roger Stone.
Welcome, I'm Roger Stone, and yes, you are back in the Stone Zone. Another weekend of hyperactivity by President Donald Trump. His first 2 weeks probably accomplished more than most presidents in the modern times. And what people seem to miss is the fact that virtually everything he's done are the exact things that he promised during the campaign. There are no surprises here. This was the American people voted for. Here to help me break down the political events of the day, my co-host, Troy Smith, the editor-in-chief of Slingshot.news.
Roger, it's always an honor to be back with you in the Stone Zone. Hope you had a great weekend. And I know that you traveled to New York. I'm excited to hear about that and your trip.
I had a great trip to upstate New York, campaigning for Anthony Constantino. In fact, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But first, well, we got to keep the lights on here. So this commercial message. Now that Anthony Fauci has been pardoned and RFK is going to unearth what most of us already knew about the pandemic, this effort won't help the tens of millions who have never felt the same after getting the virus or the mRNA shots. We all know someone with a personal story. Pfizer has been forced to release a detailed list of side effects associated with its COVID-19 shots. Sadly, some of these issues like myocarditis and blood clots are creeping up on people in the blink of an eye, causing debilitating issues. A less severe but more common concern is something called long COVID syndrome. It's a condition that leaves people feeling brain fog, chronic fatigue, and shortness of breath, lingering for months, when actually in some cases for years. The wellness company makes it easy for you with their new long COVID syndrome support package. You get 4 doctor formulated nutraceuticals with 5 to 8 plants and minerals in each bottle designed to address the root causes. You get ultimate spike detox, mind lift, elevated energy, and healthy heart. Dr. Peter McCullough recommends a durable recovery through holistic health. You can explore solutions like long COVID syndrome support. Right now, you can save, I believe it is $30 on the entire bundle and get an additional $23 off plus free shipping. Get your kit by going to twc.health/stone and use code STONE. I think you'll be glad you did. Troy, the House Republicans, as you know, have a very razor-thin margin. I believe that the actual count is 218 Republicans, 215 Democrats. But as you know, 2 of the seats in Florida are vacant. Those would be the seats of Matt Gaetz, who resigned, and also Mike Waltz, who resigned to become National Security Advisor. The other seat that will soon be vacant is that of Elise Stefanik, who was appointed UN ambassador by President Donald Trump. Now, it was thought that Stefanik would not resign her House seat until the April special election, in which Republicans are expected to win both of the Florida special elections. My good friend Jimmy Patronis will be elected, for example, in Matt Gaetz' district. But last Friday, the Democrats came up with what can only be called a dirty trick, completely changing the rules about how seats are filled in New York State when there is a special election. Previously, when a seat was vacated, the governor would declare it vacant and set an election. In almost all instances, I researched it, it would be 90 days from the resignation. But now the Democrats have come up with a new insidious plan in which if the member of Congress resigns prior to the qualifying for the local elections in 2025, well, then the special election will be held in June. But if the member of Congress resigns between June between qualifying and the general election, well, then the election will be held at the general election. Now, the parties still govern how their candidates are selected. So, for example, the Republican Party chooses its candidate in a convention in which each county chairman has a vote that is weighted equal to that percentage of the voting population within the district in that vote. So the people don't decide. There is no Republican primary. A small handful of party bosses make this decision. The Conservative Party, which is most important in New York is one of the few states where you get the cumulative vote total of two parties. You could be the nominee of the Republican and Conservative Party, but you're awarded the cumulative vote total you get on those two party lines. The conservatives, choose their candidate for this vacancy by a vote of the statewide executive committee. That does not include, I think there is one member in the 21st district, but that means that the downstate counties, the large upstate counties, anyone appointed to the state executive committee has a vote. Now, it is interesting that four candidates appear to have emerged. Anthony Constantino, who's been on this show, a local boy who built a multi-million-dollar business, StickerMule.com, and a strong Trump supporter. He risked going to jail when he put a vote for Trump sign on top of his factory, a clear First Amendment right. And he also donated about $1.5 million to Donald Trump's campaign. When it comes to the voters, I think he's the front runner. I would note that he's been advertising heavily on cable and on radio and in digital advertising in anticipation of an election that hasn't even been declared yet. Then there's Dan Steck. He's a veteran moderate Republican state senator. Dan refused to endorse Donald Trump in 2016 or 2024. There's also an assemblyman whose name is, I think it is Scott Hague, perhaps it's Steve Hague, who's a good man, a Trump supporter, but he only represents one county within this district. I have no idea how these candidates would raise money. Then there is a late entry, a fellow by the name of Josh Parker, is being promoted by my good friend Charlie Kirk for this Republican nomination. The problem is that Josh Parker voted in Texas in the 2024 election, both in the primary and the general election. So his ties to this district are tenuous. We shall see what the party bosses do, but they've already taken one run at narrowing the list of candidates that the convention can consider to three of the rhinos. Those would be Dan Steck, Steve McLaughlin, also a county executive from Rensselaer County. That's not even in the district. And Chris Hague, who, although a Trump supporter, also voted for the State Department of Social Justice, another left-wing boondoggle. We'll see how this plays out. Everything keys off when Elise Stefanik, one of the president's very best nominees, decides to resign. But there's very little room for error here, Troy. Later on in the show, we're going to talk to Jay Furman. It is actually possible that the House seat, once inhabited by Lyndon Baines Johnson, could go to the Republican nominee in a special election. So Commander Jay Furman, who ran a very strong race for that seat last time without much help from the National Party, joins us when we get to that part of the show. Meanwhile, Troy, you've got a few political items you want to bring up. Lay it on us.
Well, Roger, big news yesterday as President Trump attended the Super Bowl. He became the first sitting president of the United States to attend a Super Bowl, which I actually found interesting. And I wanted to get your take on, considering that you've known a few presidents that we've had. During the flight, though, Roger, over to New Orleans for the Super Bowl, President Trump traversed in his Air Force One for the very first time the Gulf of America. And while over that Gulf of America, formerly the Gulf of Mexico, President Trump designated February 9th as Gulf of America Day. It's official now. We have footage of President Trump making that declaration aboard Air Force One. And then, Roger, right after that, we want to go to you to get your thoughts on not only the president attending the Super Bowl, but using it to make a major announcement that cements his policy agenda, a really brilliant PR strategy from the president. Let's roll that.
And we're flying right over it right now. So we thought this would be appropriate. Even bigger than the Super Bowl. This is a big thing. And almost everybody now has assented to that.
Attention on board. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please direct your attention out the right side of the aircraft. Air Force One is currently in international waters, for the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America. Please enjoy the flight, and we are now about to head westbound to Super Bowl 59.
Wow, yeah. He did that well. That's a big... Make America great again, right? That's what we care about. Okay, here we go. So this is a famous pen now.
Who else would have the audaciousness to change the name formally from the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America? Who would have the audaciousness to put up a social media post in which he tells Justin Trudeau that he's considering making Canada the 51st state, but if Trudeau behaves himself, he might be governor? This guy has a great sense of humor. He has an audacious nature that is, you have to love. There's no one ever like him. He's a force of nature. I can tell you, having worked for him for 45 years, he's not scripted, he's not managed, he's not handled. He's his own man. He is very much his own man. That doesn't mean that he doesn't ask many people for advice, but that also means at the end of the day, he synthesizes all of that and decides what he's going to do. It is really amazing the pace that he is setting in these early days. These revelations about USAID are mind-boggling. I mean, Troy, this was originally set up. USAID was actually formed by an executive order signed by President John Kennedy. It was meant to provide funding for underdeveloped nations, poor nations, mostly in our hemisphere. But that's not what it's been used for. It's become a slush fund for the deep state. I predict to you, before it's all over, we're going to find that they have not only toppled governments, not only ran the propaganda effort for the Ukraine war, which has been an ignominious failure. I think you're going to find them involved in the January 6th matter. I think you're going to find them involved in the Trump impeachments, the Russian collusion hoax, and most likely my trial. I'll be looking into that, as will General Flynn. I don't know what to make of these enormous payments to journalistic organizations. I mean, Troy, did anybody at USAID send a couple million over to Slingshot?
It's never happened, Roger. And, we've earned everything we've got. And I think it's quite interesting that people like Politico, and this is something I was eager to bring up with you, Roger. We've just went through an entire election cycle every day on this show, documenting attacks by Politico on you personally, attacks that have resulted in your wife having her PTSD triggered, attacks that have had you really spun up over nothing because they literally just lie about you. So we've documented the lies of Politico here over and over again. And just recently, we found out that a lot of the money that they've been using to fund these attacks against you and others are funded by the government. So I want to get your thoughts. Are you looking into some kind of legal action here, or what can you really do? Because you've been attacked by the government for months now. We found out on the dime of Politico and the federal taxpayers.
Well, because the nature of my case was very, very cleverly constructed by the most corrupt prosecutor in American history, Andrew Weissman. I wasn't charged with anything having to do with Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other material crime. I was charged with process crimes, meaning I said things that were incorrect in my sworn testimony before the House Intelligence Committee. But in order for those to be violations of the False Statements Act, they have to be willful and they have to be material. In other words, they have to matter. There was no Russian collusion to cover up. There was no WikiLeaks collaboration to cover up. So whether or not I have legal redress is something that I've asked a different set of lawyers to look at. It is outrageous to me that Judge Amy Berman Jackson withheld exculpatory evidence from my defense attorneys at trial. My lawyers specifically asked for the entire unredacted Mueller final report. Under the U.S. Constitution, somebody charged with a crime has a right to see and confront all of the evidence against him. The judge ruled that she would read Mueller's report in her chambers, and then she would give us those sections that she thought were relevant to Roger Stone. Somehow she missed the section, page 178, that it says that the prosecution of Stone having to do with WikiLeaks faces factual barriers. That means they couldn't find any proof of it. They go on to say that even if I had received documents that were the fruit of a theft, there would be no way to prove that. And they concluded, based on case law, that it wouldn't even necessarily be a crime. So what was this all about? I can tell you, they wanted me to testify falsely against President Donald Trump. They basically arrested me in January. By July, they called my lawyer down to Washington and they said to him, you know, your client, Roger Stone's going to die in prison. And my lawyer said, well, the jury isn't even selected yet. How do you know that? Oh, don't worry. The jury's going to hate his guts. Here's his big chance. It's his only chance. We need him to cooperate. We need him to sign this. We need him to sign this. They put a piece of paper forward. I looked down at the paper and I said, you can take this paper and you can shove it up your ass. There was never any chance that I was going to sign a statement that was patently false. And Troy, here's the amazing thing. I had already taken 3 polygraph tests conducted by the same company that does them for the FBI and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement that proved that everything I said on the stand in my voluntary testimony was absolutely true. So the 2-tiered justice system, I think, has to be one of the greatest goals of Donald Trump. Destroying it is that way. We need to return to one standard of justice. Still shocks me, saw it last week in these confirmation hearings where multiple Republican senators wanted Tulsi Gabbard to say that Edward Snowden was a traitor and should be prosecuted. No, the traitor was General James Clapper. He's the one who testified under oath saying that America does not have a metadata collection program on Americans. And then Edward Snowden released documents that proved that that was a lie. Needless to say, General Clapper was not prosecuted.
Well, and Roger, you know, it's kind of this system that we're uncovering now. It's funny because when Elon Musk took over Twitter, he exposed the Twitter files, and he exposed that the government had employees stationed in Twitter that were, conducting the censorship. And now that he's over at Doge, he's exposing a lot that's going on in our government. And we talked about USAID and some of the money that's going from that organization to Politico and other organizations that are launching media attacks. So we know how the system works now. The Democrats in Congress launched these attacks, and we saw it here on the Stone Zone. The coordinated USAID funded outlets on the left start spinning the wheels of lies and putting out false stories, clickbait and whatnot. And they use that to craft a narrative. Now that this is being shattered, Roger, the Democrats are losing their mind. And Representative Jamie Raskin, whose father was a hardened communist, a supporter of the American Communist Party, a damn near a founder of it in the United States, he is saying that he's going to launch a class action lawsuit against Doge and Elon Musk. I want to get your thoughts on what the Democrats are going to do in response to Doge, because this is really cutting off their arms here. They can't use USAID to attack people like you, to attack people like President Trump anymore. So they're being left powerless, and they really don't seem to like it. Let's roll that clip and get your thoughts, Roger.
What I'm thinking about and talking to my friends at Democracy Defenders and other lawyers about is, could there be a nationwide class action lawsuit to follow up on last week's victories against Musk, against the Trump administration for this breach in computer security and the data of all American taxpayers? It could be a class action suit on behalf of all Americans. If the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers want to opt out and they don't want their part of the money for the contamination of their data, fine, they can opt out. But really, it's a suit on behalf of everybody, because that's our information.
Right.
It doesn't belong to Elon Musk or his little midnight crew. It belongs to the people, and the government has to hold it in trust. Now, there's specific statutes which say that information can only be accessed for tax purposes, for the purposes of the internal revenue system, and for no other purposes. What are they using that information for?
Well, Jamie Raskin, wrong again. Look, you can virtually hear his asshole puckering from here, because he engaged in illegal activities. Now, of course, he received a pardon, a preemptive pardon from Joe Biden. So if he did nothing wrong in connection with the January 6th committee, why was he pardoned? And why did he accept the pardon? When you're pardoned, by the way, you have to accept the pardon in writing. It's interesting, however, because Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, could convene House hearings, field hearings across the country, and he could subpoena those who got preemptive pardons, including Jamie Raskin. And if they refused to testify, they could be prosecuted like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro. But if they testified falsely, they could be charged, but they would go to trial in the place, the city and state where the field hearings are held. In other words, not Washington, D.C. All of this, Norm Eisen and Andrew Weissman, we're going to sue. These guys are whistling through the graveyard. Just like they said that the argument that the Jack Smith's appointment was unconstitutional because he had never been approved and confirmed by the U.S. Senate, because there was no budgeting for his position, because there is no law that mandates or even creates the position of special counsel. Night after night, Weissman said that was an absurd theory. It was crazy. There was no way, except for the judge ruled that Jack Smith's appointment is unconstitutional. And if I were a betting man, which I'm not, Troy, I would bet the Supreme Court, when it gets there, and it will agree with her. So these folks have run out their strength. They're so used to being the establishment. They're so used to having the power to send 29 FBI agents to my home at 6 o'clock in the morning to arrest me for the first time nonviolent supposed crime of lying to Congress. The power to have FBI agents raid James O'Keefe, a journalist, home because he had been given a copy of Ashley Biden's diary by one of his sources. By the way, O'Keefe never published the diary, never did any media on it. He just had it, which is not illegal. He was charged with transporting stolen information or stolen goods, I guess, across the state line. James O'Keefe does the same thing the New York Times does, the Washington Post does, the Wall Street Journal does, although he does it better. He engages in the practice of journalism, and for that he was charged. Yesterday, I saw they released the release affidavit. Pardon me, the probable cause affidavit. We'll put it up here in a moment. It is completely and totally blacked out. It is entirely redacted. So there's no information there. Uh, what we'd like to find out is, did the FBI infiltrate what was then Project Veritas? Did they have live informants inside the organization, or did Joe Biden demand this raid on an American journalist? I told the New York Post at the time that Joe Biden was using the FBI as his personal Gestapo, and my views on that have not changed. Um, we're going to talk a minute about the fact that, believe it or not, Republicans actually have a chance to win the seat in Congress in Texas in a special election that was once held by Lyndon Baines Johnson. That's an excellent segue into this slight commercial. Folks, if you are interested in the Kennedy assassination, if you want to have some context for the documents that are going to be released within 120 days based on the executive order of President Donald Trump, then let me recommend to you my book, the New York Times bestseller, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. Now, this is a potboiler. It reads like a murder mystery. You're going to learn an awful lot of things you did not know. But I make the case that Lyndon Johnson was at the helm of a plot that involved the Central Intelligence Agency, organized crime, Big Texas Oil, and the Secret Service. The role of the FBI was to cover the murder up after the fact. Just weeks ago, Alex Jones, a very good friend, surfaced a audio that was given to him by the great-great-grandson of Billy Sol Estes. Billy Sol Estes was one of Lyndon Johnson's cronies. And in this short tape, Cliff Carter, the executive director of the Democrat National Committee under Johnson's right-hand man politically, is in a conversation with Billy Sol Estes, and he says he's upset because LBJ hired a man named Malcolm Mac Wallace to kill John Kennedy. That is the thesis of my book. Malcolm Wallace's fingerprints are found on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building. 6 witnesses see a man who meets the physical description of Wallace in the window of the 6th floor. So I think that part of this narrative has been settled. But this is also a personal portrait of Lyndon Johnson, and you won't believe what an entire incomplete psychopath that he was. There's a lot in there, such as his tendency to conduct White House staff meetings while sitting on the toilet defecating. So, in any way, I want to talk about what has transpired in the 28th District of Texas. Commander Jay Furman, who grew up in Texas and after high school joined the Texas Army National Guard, flying Black Hawk helicopter missions defending the Texas border. He went on to graduate from Texas A&M University, continued service now in the U.S. Navy as an aviator and foreign area officer. He retired from the military after 28 years, and he was the Republican candidate for Congress in Texas's 28th District. Despite the fact that I couldn't get anyone in the National Republican apparatus or the National Republican Congressional Committee to take seriously that the demographic changes in this district made a winnable district, he ran an extraordinarily strong race against the incumbent Henry Culler. I think that's how you say it. And now Mr. Culler and his wife, shades of Robert Menendez, have been arrested and indicted for Fight 14 in a 14-count indictment involving bribery and theft. It is thought that the congressman's greatest leverage to avoid prison, if possible, is to resign prior to a special election rather than try to serve the sentence in jail. And therefore, I think you're going to have a special election here. Joining me now is an outstanding candidate who, quite candidly, the Republican Party did not give enough support to, but I have a feeling that's not going to happen again. Commander Jay Furman joins us in the Stone Zone.
Howdy, Roger. Thank you for having me.
You know, I, of course, having written the book on LBJ, I'm kind of mesmerized by this story. And when I met you, you said, you know, we don't have a lot of resources. I can't get anybody to listen to me in Washington. But you ran an incredibly strong race. Tell us about that to begin with.
Well, we're real happy with the result, except for the loss, which we feel like was taken or an intentional loss against the machine in South Texas. LBJ's ghost lives on there. Unfortunately, we have not put him to rest. And all the terrible things you're talking about are kind of things of lore down here. The famous Box 13 in Jim Wells County. The South Texas Democrat political machine is still alive, and it's actually helmed by the incumbent to this seat that I'm running against now, challenging an election challenge. It's Henry Cuellar, and he's held it for 20 years. If his name Degar is any indication, that's might be all you need. He's called El Patron here because he wields this office like an old political boss, and like was the person who helped LBJ win his office, his Senate seat in the famous episode down. So it continues on, and it's amazing to me, Roger, that the things you wrote about in that book are really, they've infected the nation and all the way through, and perhaps killed the president. We may learn JFK is revered down here in South Texas for great reasons, and LBJ, as evil as he is, it was kind of a ultimate good versus evil. Well, I feel like I am still entrenched in that battle. Henry Cuellar has done terrible things, taken money from the state of Azerbaijan. That's an oil-rich Muslim country that has had almost genocidal conditions on killing the Christian Armenians over territorial dispute, and run, they've killed thousands and run hundreds of thousands out of their homelands. And that's still going on today. It's a big topic. Mel Gibson and others are trying to stump on this to give awareness. But Henry was stumping for them in Congress, getting paid for them, and using his U.S. influence to shill for them in the ICC, the International Criminal Court, and other forums to keep the heat off of their war crimes. So that's what we're running up against. It truly is LBJ level evil, and there's really no other way to parse it. Everybody says Henry's a great guy. He's just a fantastic politician, and that he's the Republicans' Democrat. But I'll tell you, in the Biden era, he voted 95% with the Biden regime legislative agenda. So there's nothing conservative except for a few pop-up things to try to rhetorically make himself a conservative, where he sits on the worst border for guns, drugs, and money that runs across, is also infecting this country. So I returned from the military, and it looked like shades of what I've served on overseas and borders, and I could not lay my pack down. So I ran right at this one, understanding we're in a critical moment, and still are. LBJ's ghost is perpetuating a problem in Congress. We don't have enough true conservative leadership to support the president's plan in this golden era. He needs more firepower there, and I'm happy to do that. And I've put all of my own resources against this because of this American moment. We have one on-ramp onto sanity. In less than 2 years, we have to get up to speed and structurally change this. So we're still trying. We're in the fight. I filed my election petition this week in Congress, and look for that. The venue is actually in front of Congress to try this case. We've been cheated 6 ways to Sunday down there. I could go on, from my name not showing up on the ballot to shredding of official ballots, and blocking a Fourth Court Order of Appeals. It's the second highest court in Texas. Webb County is the venue that I'm wrestling with. They will not let us in and finish the copying of all ballots, which is our right according to Texas law.
Yeah, it seems to me, just looking at the material you sent me, that the ghost of LBJ lives on. He famously won by stealing votes in one ballot box in one county. It's funny, the voters all voted in chronological and alphabetical order. It's quite famous. I think it was Jim Wells County, I believe. But
Yes, sir.
the stuff they did here regarding the last election, walk us through all of that because it's really shocking.
Yeah, Roger, just I have over 100 affidavits and declarations, people swearing that my name did not show up on the electronic display ballot, and that they could not physically vote for me. And so that really brought our attention to this thing was being yanked out from under us. That was the first week of early voting. We quickly tried to assess where we were, told all the powers that be, and then started recording people's stories and complaints. They had tried to tell the local TV station. They didn't want to give ear. Like I said, the machine is strong in Laredo, Webb County, Texas. So we collected those complaints and then went and canvassed all of them and tried to get everybody who would talk to us to write an affidavit or unsworn declaration. Because it's difficult. So the machine is not the machine because it doesn't have power. So it's a certain obstacle for somebody to take a risk and put their name on a piece of paper and swear that they've witnessed something that really shows the machine in operation. So that's not insignificant. And then we carried that into the election, and so we came up short. It came up about 4% short of the total, and that deficit is found several times over in Webb County. Well, that is Henry Cuellar's stronghold there on the border, and so when we did an official recount request, we showed up to do that, and not only did they not let us in the door, but it turns out at the very same time when the Republican election judge finally got inside, witnessed shredding of official ballots. In the recount, I was granted a blanket challenge for all the ballots because of things like shredding. And oh, by the way, they were only accessing every ballot box by one key. It should be two toward the Texas law and in possession of two different agencies. Those things, plus the missing name, we said we need to see every ballot. And they're anonymous ballots, but we wanted to get a copy of all of them. And they said, well, okay, but you have to copy them all yourself personally. And I said, okay, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I know why you're doing that. We're the copiers. Well, you can't use our copiers. So I had to wheel in copiers that were specially big enough to handle the odd paper size of the ballot. Did all that personally to about 25,000 of them before they cut me off and stopped that. And then we went and got a fourth court of appeals to order them to continue. They've been ignoring that court order for over 2 months. Just flat out refusing. They've hired a firm in Austin, that's the capital of Texas, a high-powered firm to try to help them evade the law. And here we are. We're in a tete-a-tete or a face-off with Webb County, old school style. I feel like we're going to meet at noon on the street. It's been so weird down there, Roger, that during the recount, the tally box, I had my head down copying. My poll watchers are observing the recount, and I look up, and a tally box is poof missing. And I go around and ask everybody where it was. I finally find a box that I can see through a window in another office that's closed off, and they've got all of the tally sheets out of it, and they won't let me in for the first time. They physically barred the door, and they've got them behind a partition, all laid out. I would surmise, but they're definitely all out of the locked, secure box. And I should note at this point that they insisted on using pencils through the entire recount process to do the tallies, unprecedented in Texas. And we couldn't get any support from Secretary of State to help us not let that happen. So for 45 minutes, this box contents of the tallies of all of the early votes were out of our observation. They broke the chain of custody, and they brought it back in eventually, but I have no idea if what returned is what left. It was a week or plus of counting all of the early votes tallied on those sheets, and which was used to then come up with an official recount. So that's just a little anecdote. I mean, they even kind of got a little rough with me out in the parking lot once. It's unfortunate. I think it's they've been doing it so long that when somebody actually pokes them in the chest and holds them to account, and on behalf of the people demands the law followed on election integrity, that the rebuff is met with confusion. They don't know what to do. People don't usually lean in on them this way. We really look at this moment as the Lord brought us here and now to fight the election integrity in South Texas. Results of the election, are still pending, but really, I think the center line raised at, or the reason why we're doing this is to bring clarity. Because Roger, we have a moment right now to slay LBJ's ghost and to use the political momentum we have in this country right now that President Trump has brought and his team. And we need to attack elections right now and make sure they are clear and make sure that this cannot happen again. This is the moment to do it. That's where the Democrats are. If you look at where they're leaning forward in those precincts that they've earmarked for the next election fraud. We have to lean into them as well and clean them up with our current political momentum, or we're just going to be doing this again. And I don't think we have we will never have another President Trump. We may never have a political moment like now. So that's why, again, I was all in. I put all my own resources in this, understanding I've seen this in other countries. And really, once you go over this precipice that we almost went over as a nation, you don't really pull it back. Even America, the fall is even more drastic and a bigger thud. So, Lord willing, we're here now, and we need to be excellent in diligence on elections. 28 can bring the extra vote that we need in Congress right now, and it can be ours forever. We flipped the border for Trump. Webb County voted for Trump. All the counties on the border in this district voted for Trump. We only had 2 holdouts in this district, 7 out of 9 of a 110-year Democrat district. We got 7 of them for Trump this time. Massive, massive shift in demographics. So you said at the beginning, heads need to be turned in this direction with a very small budget, $500,000-ish. I was able to bring a 20-year incumbent within 4%, unheard of. And that's because our message matched where the people are on this. Really, I think South Texas and the Hispanic population in general are a great salvation story for this country, who still hold traditional values, who still hold family, God, and country above all the other craziness that the Democrats have gone off into a unrecoverable direction right now. We really don't have 2 parties, but I believe this voting bloc is a complete match for the new made and renewed Republican Party as it's showing up now, and it's beautiful to see.
One of the things I noticed in studying the statistics about your race is you, like President Trump, made deep inroads into the Hispanic community. This is, I think, proof that we have a realignment coming, and all the old rules are off. If I were Mike Johnson, I'd be looking very hard at this seat because the Democrats in New York 21 have managed to nominate a moderate farmer, not a crazed socialist. We're going to have deep divisions in the party over the way this nominee is being chosen. Some party leaders have kind of self-appointed themselves to have a pared down, a narrowed down list of potential candidates, saying that the state party Republican convention or district convention cannot vote for anybody who isn't on the approved list. That's a complete violation of state party bylaws. That's the rhinos trying to squeeze out the strongest Trump candidate. That would be Anthony Constantino. Jay, it's expensive to run a campaign for Congress, no matter where it is in the country. When I met you, I think rightfully complained about the fact that you couldn't get the party to take your prospects seriously. Everything you told me anecdotally pointed towards the fact that you had a great opportunity here. But since then, the congressman and his wife have been indicted. It'll be interesting to see when he resigns. I think he clearly will resign. And if Congress is out of session, is it my understanding is that would trigger an immediate special election. So you need to be prepared. How can people help you in your upcoming congressional campaign?
We would love that help. We have various ways you can give. please go to our handle at Commander Furman, all spelled out, or commanderfurman.com. You can go and find the Anadot site there. And I'll say the election challenge you're doing right now is its own massive expense. And that's really something that's an every American moment right now. And we, can't wait till next cycle to fight this battle, or we're going to be behind. And so this is a moment where we can clear the air. I mean, best case, we win the election challenge. That's what we stipulate. We definitely demonstrate to Congress in our petition that we had the votes to do it. But either way, whether it's a special election or we're prevail in this election challenge, it takes cash, and I am certainly my own grassroots candidate, raising money, from all over America and all over South Texas, and small donations. Small, large, we need everything to fix this country. We need the votes for President Trump so that we can support the speaker in his effort to do so. And we are committed to do that down here in South Texas. The battle is not over, and this is actually where it begins and when we have to begin. So yeah, please, thanks, Roger, for the plug. CommanderFurman.com. Come visit us there, see what we're about, and please drop a little something on your way out.
Jay, do you think President Trump is more popular in this district today than he was just a few weeks ago, just before the election?
I think so. We have not stopped plugging President Trump in our engagements, in our social media, whenever we talk to folks, just to lean into the validity of what we were telling them, on the premise of him being elected. I think his 20 days of momentum here that we're turning into is evidence, and everybody is I don't think shocked, but I think encouraged, and truly President Trump is a leader that South Texas can get behind. We are at the heart, LBJ's aside, and George Parr's aside, and Henry Cuellar's aside, people who have captured an amazing population. We are truly at the heart, folks, that recognize action, and matching that with words, and appreciate strong leadership to do the right thing in the hard moments, even when it's not popular. We understand valued and principled leadership, not compromising those for the moment. So for all too long, the leadership down here has, South Texas has been ignored, to one extent or another, and leadership, elected folks down here, I don't know if I call them leadership, have thrown out scraps from the table of DC for too long, and people call that good. The message we've had from the beginning is don't be happy with scraps from your table that you're setting. Really, we need to clear the table, as Doge is doing right now. Keep the money local so solutions can be deployed near the problems, and they're more efficient, effective, and accountable in doing so. I tell you, this border and this population is never more important than right now. And truly, the good news story is, and this is 80% Hispanic district, I think the Hispanic population in this country will sustain this conservative repurposing of the Republican Party for a long time to come, if we have truth and reconciliation with the leaders that have been parading as conservatives. If we welcome people back into this movement who perhaps were on the fray, if they do have a true turnaround. But I think Americans are looking for authentic folks like President Trump, and people who get things done. We don't have another moment. Like I said, I've served in many countries overseas, where they did not recover. I've been on many borders. And I understand the sovereignty that we almost completely yielded to the people who have a globalist idea of America. That'll never work. I've never been in any sort of international community that has worked. Sovereignty is the sine qua non, is the baseline of where we have to start all conversations, and American sovereignty, and being as the hegemon, or the strongest nation in the world. We have to take care of us first. America First policy is exactly how we're going to do that. And we have to, in this moment, push that all the way through what looks to be almost a completely rotten federal government. Hopefully not. We can save some good parts. But I'm happy to get to DC and get in that push, put some strain on the line.
All right. Tell folks one more time where they could contact you to make a generous contribution.
Yes, sir. CommanderFurman.com, and you can look us up on our socials at Commander Furman, and come see us there and check out what we're doing and drop us a message. We need supporters, likes, follows, all of that business, and then certainly the monetary push is very expensive to challenge elections. Why people don't do it, so look, if it takes me taking a second mortgage on the house, I will do it, but I need some help. I don't want to go, completely Winchester here. I need some ammo to fight in DC when we get there. So please get behind us at this time. We need it more than ever right now. And we appreciate you helping us secure this 231 miles of border.
Troy, final question to you for Commander Jay Furman.
Absolutely, sir. We've seen border crossings decline 90% since President Trump took office. And I think a lot of people are looking around saying, what is the next step in addressing this immigration problem? If elected to Congress, what do you think is that next step for us to take as a country to kind of secure the border for not just now, but forever?
Right. So, I mean, we're getting out the really bad hombres right now, if you will, opening up Gitmo again. Thank God that's what we need to do, make it painful on the way out. I look at a carrot and stick method. We have about a year to get this done. What we've ingested as a country, I call weaponized mass migration. That's an intentional legal term. I push back against the globalists and WF and the UN terms. They believe, it's the world's refugees and they're world citizens. And like I've already talked about, that's not correct. And so we have to do the carrot and stick. So we need to encourage people to self-deport as fast as possible. And we need to and say if you do that, then you won't have a deportation on your record, and you can get the head of the line down in your country at a U.S. consulate. And then the people that don't comport, then they've self-identified as criminals. And then we will hunt you down, and we'll augment ICE to do so. And we'll make it painful on the way out the door. Maybe give you a stop at Gitmo for your trouble on the way out. I think we have to do that. We have a year probably to do so. We could get it done in 6 months. That carrot and stick, and I've posted about this. But for the sustainment forward, we need skills and we need people. We need workers. All right. But we need to right size that for America and right time it. And so at those U.S. consulates downrange, we need to push the jobs and the matchup of those people, and perhaps even skills and training there to match, informed by industry. And that's incredibly important, and so that we can bring people in that aren't immediately dependent on us. My big employer friends and folks that hire a lot of folks, seasonal workers, what have you, whether it's construction or ag or what have you, tell me that Biden's illegals didn't go to work. We were paying them, all right. And it's going to be a little painful getting them out. So we have to do that. That bomb, that population bomb, or weaponized mass migration, if not handled quickly and cleverly, will explode in our faces now, not just later. For all the unfunded mandates they represent. So we have to be really clever about this. And we really need to get the localities, the states and the local municipalities involved in this process, incentivize and then use the stick method if they don't help us out voluntarily. We have a very limited moment to do this. Otherwise, we're going to lose the initiative on that, and it'll impact us next election as well on a political standpoint for sure. So I think we have to, as a conference, as the Republicans in the House, we have to be lockstep behind the president and the speaker doing so to get that done. And we have to come up with we have to follow the agenda. And right now, really, that's the mandate. I mean, we talk about the mandate, but the mandate's real, and we don't need to. We have to exercise that goodwill that the American people gave us, and they're watching and closely. So if we don't move up as fast as the president's doing in the House, then we're going to squander that. So we need more votes and horsepower to do that, and that's what we're trying to do in South Texas. It won't take much. We have the evidence to prove that we won it in November and CD 28 for the Republicans. And hopefully we don't have to fight a special election just so we can get to people's business sooner. So that's what we're doing, and that's what we aim to do.
All right, great privilege to have Jay Furman on the show today. Jay, I might have to come down there and make a campaign appearance in LBJ's district.
I
Last
love it.
time in Texas, when I did a book tour for my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. By the way, you can buy that by going to themanwhokilledkennedy.com, themanwhokilledkennedy.com. I had to wear a bulletproof vest. The number of death threats that I still got, this was 2013, was mind-boggling. It's interesting. I just got a text from my daughter who says that she had a threatening message today. Someone who, well, I won't get into specifics. We'll report it to the local police. But these leftists are really, really deranged. They're deranged, and they don't understand that it's over for them. That the American people have spoken. The things that Donald Trump is doing right now are the things he said he would do in the campaign. There are no surprises. He said he was going to stop men from playing in women's sports. He said he was going to end the DEI nonsense. He said he was going to cut federal spending. They act like they've never heard of any of this before. It's very heartening, because I believe that America is about to enter a golden age. Call it the age of Trump. It's an unprecedented age of peace, prosperity, security, and justice. Donald Trump cannot do it alone. He needs people like Commander Jay Furman in Congress to support the America First agenda. Jay, thank you so much for joining us. God bless you.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Troy. Y'all take care.
All right, Troy, I'm afraid we only have about 2 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this up. Stay with me, though. Folks, in case you're not certain, you can watch our show every day, the Stone Zone, at 4 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Eastern, at worldviewtube.com. And then if you miss it there, well, you can see it at 8 o'clock at night on Rumble. So go to your cell phone, download the Rumble app, follow rumble.com/Roger Stone. That's the Stone Zone. Set a notification for yourself, and you can see us there 5 days a week. Troy, it's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be an American. Thank you so much for joining us again today as co-host of the show. The turnout, the prodigious turnout of incredible stories, news-breaking stories at Slingshot.news is something you don't want to miss, folks. Go over there and subscribe to Slingshot.news. It's completely free, and you'll be ahead of the curve in terms of what's happening in America. Until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?